I was hoping to find a suitable property to build a retreat center. The estate agent had taken me to see various places. As I got out of the car, he said, you see, you can't see a thing. I've told you, it's no use going on and on and on in this mist and this rain. I said, no, I want to go there and I want to step onto that property. And I walked out for a little bit and got instantly drenched with that thick mist, like you only can get in places like that. And suddenly there was that, wow, a feeling I can't describe, like a homecoming, I've come home. Something comes up from the depths of your mind that takes over and says, my boy, go for it. Bodhi is light, or enlightenment, where a light suddenly shines into a dark cave, and suddenly you can see where you are. And the mind is a bit like that, a large part of the mind anyway, like a dark cave. And you can feel your way and try and decide what this may be. But there's nothing like being able to shine a light into it and actually seeing, oh my gosh, look what I found. It's important to encourage other people to expose themselves to conditions where they too may have that waking up, that Bodhi. When I bought a property in Ixopo, which was devastated, overgrazed, overgrown with bramble, buckwheat, wild wattle, and so on. The first thing I said to do before I built even anything was to have parties of people to come and help me clear the site. I started running some retreats of sort, meditation retreats. And then what we did, we cleared the hills of bramble and other horrible weeds that had run riot there. We then converted the clearing idea into tree planting retreats. The property came with an induna who had been allowed to live there with his wife and 5 children. I tried to explain to him what it was that I intended to do, and that in exchange for him getting paid, he could help me mix the concrete, carry the blocks for me, and things like that. He wanted to know what this Buddhism was all about. As I started to explain a bit more, he said, yeah, it's about Ubuntu, he said. Oh, I said, yes, you're quite right. Where all living beings are in the same boat. He was wonderful. We had an unforgettable meeting of minds.
I was born here in this farm. I remember when I was a little girl, my father built this place with the boss, Louis. They hired a woman and my uncle. The man is only my uncle. I'd see the woman with the wheelbarrow, with the concrete. Yes, and then the scaffold. When they built the house, and then the woman with the wheelbarrow and the bricks. Ngoba basoyifika njalo ngoLesihlanu. Kubuyena uzofika amtshela ubaba ukuthi kuloko uzakwenza kanje. Next Friday it come and check. And then go back maybe Sunday. And then next Friday come back again and check. Uyena wemtshela ama plan ukuthi mbanjwa zenza kanje mbanjwa uzenza kanje. All the time the plan is Louis.
He was the driving force of that whole creation of the BRC. He basically said that, he was building up this place on a farm near Ixopo, and that he would be very happy if I joined him. So I went up and met him again, and he was just building. We lived, I don't know, in whatever temporary accommodation was there at the time. And he just worked day and night physically. Enormous enthusiasm and skillfulness, of course. I didn't have any skill to speak of at all, so he taught me everything. Louis would do some Buddhist introductory courses. They were very popular and they kept going for years. Slowly built up a repertoire of offerings, and it seemed that in that process a wider group was reached. I then became by default the meditation instructor. I sit with my body, I sit with my mind, and in that moment, I find my life. Whatever it is. And sometimes it's deeply peaceful. Sometimes it's very, very difficult. Sometimes it's unsettled and restless, disturbed even. Fearful, whatever my life is, there's no good or bad in that. It's deeper than any of those words. It's right at this moment. What is true in my life? What's real? And I sit in the hall of reality, if you like. I sit there, and whatever it brings is my life. A whole lot of people have come through there, and some stayed, and some laid wonderful seeds there. There were monks in the Orthodox Theravadan Thai Vipassana tradition from England who came out, helped Louis build the Buddha statue and various things like that. We'd started that before I'd left, but they did all the expert work on that.
Incredible vision to create something like this refuge, sanctuary, for so many people to actually find solace in.
Louis was always such an inspiring figure. He was such an embodiment of joy and vitality, and nothing was daunting to him. And he would be working there with his hands, in the soil, on the buildings, very much creating his dream, his vision. And then he would be sitting on the cushion.
After a lot of activity and a lot of thinking, there should be ease, rest, and a lot of non-thinking. And that non-thinking, to me, translates as meditation, where you let go of all thought. As it comes in, you say, not now. Let me see what is behind you. Let me see the space in which the thought happens. Just like we tend to forget, talking to each other like that and using equipment the way we do. It's all taking place in space. And the space is very accommodating. If we move just now, and if I move my hands, the space doesn't care one way or the other, It's very gentle, very friendly to whatever wants to come into that space. It makes way for it. So, and to become more like that, to be less focused on the things and the events that happen, which upset us so quickly, which make us become more and more entangled in those things, wrestling with them. To just create a bit of space around them, openness, ease.
I arrived as a skeptical young person, and it was incredible how what was offered and the space that the BRC provides allowed me to move beyond my skepticism to a place of discovery that felt very sincere and authentic. There was an offering that was made, and that is in alignment with the whole ethos of Buddhism, which is try this out. If it's helpful, use it. If it isn't, discard it. Louis planted many seeds, literally and figuratively. And I think he touched the heart of people because he could relate to anybody. He had the knowledge, but he also had the compassion to really be committed to alleviating suffering. One had a sense of being part of a lineage. And Louis drawing in people from the Thai forest tradition, from the Tibetan tradition, from the Zen tradition, from all the different traditions, gave one a sense that one was connecting with something deeply ancient and meaningful.
I simply had to trust myself to that flow and discover whilst I was being taken along by the stream what it was that I had to do. So that has been probably the most fulfilling part of it, to go into the territory of the mind that was totally unfamiliar for me and only glimpsed occasionally through the yogis I met and the books I read. But to actually be right in the middle of that, right into the middle of that stream, and to be carried along by it, it was a kind of a partnership with a deeper life that was happening within me. A dance that we did together. And even now when I talk about it and think about it, I feel quite stirred still to this day by that feeling of having answered to that current that needed to take, that was willing to take me along like that. I know I'm sounding a bit esoteric and less flowery, but still, it's the only way to describe it.
My first experience of a silent retreat was such a revelation that so much wisdom could be discovered without words, just from the presence of one's own being. And that deep healing could be found just by learning how to be with yourself, with your own issues, with your feelings, with your struggles, with your suffering.
It strikes me often that a retreat looks as if you're just going in. And there is that movement, of course, as one's mind quietens down. There is that coming back to oneself. But for me, it's essentially a movement into myself and through that into the world. So it's essentially a kind of a way of connecting with this world, not just internally in perhaps a more psychological sense, but a way of sensing that when there's some kind of stillness and equanimity inside of me, that's exactly the moment that I connect to the world. So that it's not a private experience, but when I'm quiet, I can hear the wind in the trees. When it's quiet, I can see you in front of me, you know. I can sense the space around me, so that what appears to be a going inward is in fact the very moment of connecting with my world. And that's to me what retreat is.
I am a head of housekeeping. Every morning I go to the office to fetch the keys and give the ladies and tell them, you are going to do maybe Kuti, Lodge, the chalet, like that. I'll clean the rooms, I'll make the bed, I'll set the table. Sometimes I'll go to the kitchen to help in the kitchen. I'll do the ironing. I enjoy too much to work here because all the stuff, the good stuff, no one shouted at another one, no, there's no fighting. is a lot of women work here to support their families. I like to do that there too. Qhubeke njalo. Ngiyathanda ukuhlala la ngobani nabazali bami bakhona la, amasiko esiwenzayo, iboss ethu iyavuma ukuthi siwenzele la. Konke nje siyakwenza kukho esingakwenzi. Singathi nje basiphethe kahle abaqashi ngoba senza yonke into eyamasiko.
One hears the thoughts, so many thoughts. You realize how much noise there is inside. We notice our feelings, and we have the space and the time to register those feelings. There is a sense of having a heart that feels things. Not only sadness, of course. We start to feel a warmth as we notice the beauty around us. We start to notice joy as something gives us pleasure. We start to notice irritability and anger, perhaps. We become aware that there are feelings asking to be felt. And we realize the extent to which we have not been allowed to have our feelings. The sensations in the body, the sounds, the sights, the smells, even the tastes, all that sensory experience becomes much more vivid and intense as the silence deepens. We all have a different relationship to silence. For some, it is such a relief to arrive and settle straight into this quiet space. For others, it's a big adjustment. It takes time to trust that the silence is containing and nurturing. Because for some people, silence is associated with emptiness, with nothingness, with a fear that nothing is going to arise. But as we are in silence for longer, people begin to soften and settle. People begin to feel that they are arriving home. so often we feel self-conscious, we feel embarrassed, we feel ashamed, we feel not good enough. All of that stemming from quite a vicious inner critic. And so that internalized image constantly makes us feel that we are lacking something. We hate ourselves for not being happy, not being confident, not being sure. And we become angry and frustrated with ourselves for how we look or how we feel or what we can do or can't do, for where we are in our lives. We imagine that if we are feeling sad or afraid or unsure, if we don't know, that this is something to hide. We create this atmosphere of inner conflict and turmoil, this kind of inner warfare. And that really makes us very miserable, and it makes us very despairing, because we feel we have to be someone else to be happy. In the silence, we start to realize that a lot of the attacks come from within our own mind. The self-attacks are the most damaging and tormenting. And the silence begins to reveal that there is no one else judging. It's just our own inner critic. And that is such an empowering, liberating discovery, because we can learn to befriend and to quieten that inner critic. And as we do so, the heart begins to open. One can visibly see people relaxing. And it's a most wonderful discovery that one can relate to oneself with more kindness.
We just sit. That's it. See what appears. The word meditation then it becomes broader than just that. When we stand up from our cushion, how attentive can I be? Can I be fully attentive in the way I move my body, in the sense of space that I have in my standing up and my walking and my tidying and my lying down? and my bathing and my eating in the bath and my loving and my driving in my car. So the word meditation is just endlessly expanding. And the characteristic of it is that I'm present as much as I can be, you know.
We got the housekeeping and the garden. I'm doing the maintenance, but I want to help to do all the job. I'm not sick because I'm maintenance. I'm not raking. If something is broken, I go to fix it. Electricity, I'm going to fix it. Tiling, everything, if something is broken. If some people are not talking each other, I need to call them. And then the people that must tell me the stories, what's happening, because I'm in Duna. All the time I'm looking at the Buddhists, what's happening. Even now, it's a winter now. The winter is very hard because you saw the fire all the time. I'm looking everywhere to see where the fire, the forest is safety, the Buddhist is safety. If I saw something like a smoke, I call the Buddhist to the office. I saw the smoke, please send someone to look. If I saw the people that are working here, I call the office. I saw people that are working here, send the security. If we're not doing a good job, there's no PRC.
We certainly couldn't be there if it weren't for the men and women who hold the space and keep the space safe for us. They provide the true nourishment by the space, by the beauty, by the gardens, by the home that we come to, and by the incredible food. That nourishment is really provided by the men and women who are the keepers of that piece of earth. It is their valley. You feel the incredible privilege and blessing of your own life there. You feel deep appreciation and the hardship of others that are supporting you when you are there. One really has the opportunity to sit with all of those emotions, to feel how our interconnectedness brings us to a place of deep gratitude.
liberation. It's, I mean, such a great word. It's so powerful for us, for me anyway. What does it mean in terms of my practice? As you said, there are all these political and other dimensions of it. But essentially, it's to do with the depth of this intimacy that we have with this world, the people in it and everything. And what we call liberation must surely come from that deep sense of connectedness with each other.